Oodalali and welcome. My name is DJ, aka Ferda Fangorn, and I am back with the third part of this series going over budget singles for the game Disney Lorcana. This video today will be featuring my favorite ink and my personal favorite one to play, Emerald. It will follow the same rules and guidelines as my previous two videos, and all the videos in the series will follow in that every card featured will be rare, super rare, or legendary, as all commons and uncommons fall under my budget parameters. Every card will cost no more than $5 for a single copy, meaning a full playset will only cost you $20 maximum at market value at the time of recording this video. This is my favorite ink. I might yap a little extra with this one. It's a really fun ink to play. It does a lot of cool, different, unique things, and I'm really excited to jump into this ink with you guys. So let's get started. Okay, as we begin this video, the first section of this video, as usual, will be budget staples. So to start off, we are going to talk about one of my favorite villains in all of Disney, Prince John, greediest of all. He is a rare character from the Floodborn set. He's a 3-cost uninkable character, 1 strength, 2 willpower, quests for 2. He also has ward, which allows him to not be chosen by anything your opponents play, offering him a lot of protection and giving him the ability to stay on the board for that ability he has of I sentence you. Whenever your opponent discards 1 or more cards, you may draw a card for each card discarded. It is a phenomenal draw engine in a discard deck. He was once the supreme ruler of all draw engines for Emerald. He's still a very good one as Emerald. It does like to play the discard hand manipulation game, and it plays it very well. I prefer him over Diablo a little bit, depending on the build, with because he requires a lot less setup. He's just a ton of fun to play with. He's very aggravating for your opponents. And if you're going to play Emerald, there's a good chance you're going to have some form of discard in there and use him to draw cards. Moving along, we're going to talk about a rare character from the Inkland set. It is Cursed Merfolk, Ursula's Handiwork. He is a rare character, 1 cost uninkable, 0 strength, 1 willpower, quest for 2. They have the Poor Souls ability that whenever this character is challenged, each opponent discards a card. It's not great stat wise, it's really just there to get you 2 lore, and because it quests for 2, it kind of forces your opponent's hand to get rid of it as quickly as possible. Usually they have to do that by challenging. Sometimes they'll wait a couple turns so they get some other form of removal to avoid discarding, and by then you've generated a ton of value with this character. It's a very strong opening card. I like it a lot. It's a lot of fun to use. It just creates mayhem for your opponent early, and that's something Emerald wants to do. It really wants to force your opponent into things they don't want to do and remove them from their ideal gameplay. And this card does that perfectly. It also pairs well with that Prince John we talked about. Up next, we're talking about Lyle Tiberius Rourke. He is a super rare character, also from Inklands. He's a 3-cost uninkable, 2 strength, 4 willpower, quests for 1. He has the Well Now You Know ability, which allows you to give a chosen opposing character reckless when you play him, forcing that character to challenge into something by the end of their next turn, assuming they haven't sung a song or got exerted for some other ability that they may have. He does the same thing. He wants to force your opponent to do things they don't want to do, throws them off their game. It's very good for that. He also has the ability, thanks for volunteering, that whenever one of your other characters is banished, each opponent loses a lore. So, for example, say you have that merfolk on the board, you force something to be reckless by playing him, and then they must challenge if they can't find a way to get it exerted otherwise, from besides questing. And not only are they discarding a card, they're also losing a lore. He also sits on the board a lot. A lot of times you don't really turn him sideways too much. You kind of want that second effect to stay active for as long as possible, forcing your opponent to find creative ways to take advantage of the board and take control of the board. Just another nuisance and another great card. Moving along is one of my personal favorite cards in this ink. It is Morph Space Goo. He's just an innocent little goo guy. He's a rare character. 2 cost inkable, 2 strength, 1 willpower, 1 lore. Yes, he's very fragile, but that's okay because he comes with a very strong ability in mimicry that you may play any character with shift on this character as if it had any name, meaning any single Floodborn character you have that you want to shift can be shifted onto him. It allows for a lot of headaches for your opponent, not knowing exactly what's coming next. There's a lot of shift targets that get played are only played for that shift Floodborn character coming down later, so they need to kind of know what to expect. Morph makes it harder for your opponent to be prepared for whatever's coming. He also provides a target for some of those characters that have the Floodborn shift ability that may not have the best targets to use that, such as the Beast Tragic Hero. Even the Big Clarabelle is a good one for him. Big Tinkerbell and Steel. There's Lady Tremaine and Ruby. There's just a lot of really good stable characters that are still good without shifting, but he can really open up that door for them. I like him a lot. He's also a pretty good shield. Opponents usually want to get rid of him as soon as possible and slow get down their game to deal with him to avoid whatever might be coming down the pipeline. Just a really, really good card. It's very affordable right now, and as each set continues to come out and the game continues to grow, we're going to get more and more Floodborn characters with that shift ability. He's just going to become more and more strong. I love it a lot. Go ahead and grab a playset as soon as you can. I think he is going to be super essential sooner than later. Moving along, we have another annoying card for your opponent because that's what Emerald likes to do. We have the Muses, Proclaimers of Heroes. These are a rare character from Ursula's Return. 4 cost, inkable, 2 strength, 4 willpower, quest for 1. It also has that ward ability like Prince John, meaning it's got protection. It can stay upright on your board and hopefully stay around for a while and really make an impact with their ability, the Gospel Truth, which is whenever you play a song, you may return chosen character with 2 strength or less to their player's hand. This allows for some fun combos, especially with the discard, because a lot of people will try to lean into discard and play with an empty hand so you don't have that draw engine with Prince John, or like things like Curse Merfolk don't punish them for challenging into them. But with the Muses, you can play a song, put something back in their hand, and then now they have something that could be discarded. You can also use it to target your own cards. Say you don't have a better play on board or something, and you want to use the Muses to sing a song themselves. You could use them to sing that song, bounce them back to your hand, and then replay them safe again. They just offer a lot of flexibility, and it's a really good card. It has a lot of fun builds around it. Up next is our first non-character. It is the action song Under the Sea. It is an 8 cost uninkable rare song from the Ursula's Return. It does have Sing Together 8, which means you can use multiple characters to sing that 8 cost, making this card much more playable and more likely to see. I did debate whether or not it belonged in this budget staples section or the second part of our video with the potentials, but I think it's a strong enough card in Emerald, especially if you're building budget decks. It's a really good form of removal, as Emerald's removal is usually a type that you really have to work for to really make it pay off. It can clear out a board pretty quickly, especially if you're playing against a low to the ground type of deck or even Steel Song decks. We have a lot of lower strength characters, princess decks, things like that. It's just a really cool removal piece because it sends it all to the bottom of their deck and they won't be able to access it. It doesn't discard them necessarily, but they're off the board, and that's all we really care about. Moving on, we have another action song, another rare. It is also from Ursula's Return. It is We Don't Talk About Bruno. 5 cost and inkable. What this one does is you can return chosen character to their player's hand, then that character discards a card at random. So say they're playing with an empty hand and they have one character on board, you play this, send that one character to the hand, and it's obviously going to be the randomly chosen discarded card. It's a little complicated for straight removal, but it's a hand disruption. It throws your opponent off from what they're wanting to do. It bounces things back to their hand. It's just a really cool card. You play it while you have the muses down. You can get funky with it. All of a sudden you can clear a couple characters from their board, depending. It's just a really fun card, and it's really annoying, and I like it a lot. Moving on is a really strong 2-drop character card from Shimmering Skies. It is Bonsai Gluttonous Predator. He is a rare character, 2 cost uninkable, 3 strength, 2 willpower, quest for 2. It's overstated. It commands a presence on the board on turn 2. Emerald tends to have some more of the weaker characters for the most part, so it's nice to have something with a little bit of teeth to it, if you will. It's a good card. It's a really good way to have a threat on the board, whether that's be questing for 2 or being able to challenge into a lot of things and get rid of it. I don't know if it goes in every single Emerald build, being uninkable, as a lot of great Emerald cards are uninkable, but it is definitely essential to the ink. It is a core piece. You're definitely going to want these while you can get them in the budget side. Moving along in, we are going to talk about what might be my personal favorite card from the Azurite Sea for Emerald. Um, Go Tamago. She is a rare character, 2 cost, inkable, 2 strength, 2 willpower, quest for 1, and she's evasive. But what we're really here for is that stop whining woman up ability. When you play her, you can pay 2 ink to gain lore equal to the damage on chosen opposing character. This pairs really well with Steel. Could pair well with Ruby if we have Ruby Emerald ever becomes a thing because Ruby can do a lot of damage. My personal play with this card is to do something like sing a Zeus on like a Hero Flaversham or a Tamatoa, pinging them for 5 damage, and then you play this for 2, pay that 2 ink, and you're gaining 5 lore instantly. Is a really good way to suddenly rack up a bunch of lore late game. You kind of view this as a 4 drop in your hand because you definitely want to play it and get that ability. Although sometimes having that evasive on the board to answer other evasives is nice on turn 2. It's a really good card. It's a great way to close out games. You definitely want at least a couple copies in every Emerald deck you build, in my opinion. And to close out this budget staple section for Emerald, we have Anna, Diplomatic Queen from Shimmering Skies. She is a legendary character. She is 3 costs uninkable, 2 strength, 3 willpower, quest for 2. What makes her so exceptionally strong is she is very, very flexible. You do view her as a 5 drop because of her ability, Royal Resolution, that when you play her, you can pay 2 ink to activate one of 3 different effects. One of them being each opponent chooses and discards a card, so that plays right into that discard theme we're seeing a lot of here. You can give +2 strength to a character and manipulate the board that way, and give someone a sudden burst in strength, being able to challenge into something your opponent thought might have been safe. Or you can just straight up banish a damaged character, which is really good. Having that flexibility is huge. Emerald's really big on flexibility, and she does it better than most of the cards in this deck. You do view her as a 5 drop, like I said, so sometimes it feels bad. And again, she is another uninkable. Unfortunately, Emerald is one you kind of have to pick your route carefully, what you want to do with it, because it is a heavy uninkable ink. But she is very good. She offers flexibility where you really want it, because with Emerald decks too, as you notice, a lot of these cards are in that 2, 3 cost, 4 cost range. That mid game, as you go into it and get closer to going into late game, you can really misstep because you might choose the wrong path, because you kind of have to really know what your opponent's playing, hopefully know what they might play next. You have to know your opponent's deck almost as well as you know your own to really make this ink do what it does best. She gives you different avenues, can kind of help you recover if you make a misstep on that turn 3 and 4 turn, and coming into turn 5, you can kind of fix it a little bit. She's a very good card. She was at one point an fairly expensive legendary. I think she's peaked around $15, but now she is budget friendly. She's a few dollars. I definitely recommend grabbing at least a couple of her. And with that, we are going to move into our second part of the video. Moving on, we are going to start talking about budget potentials. And like I said in the beginning of this video, Emerald is my favorite ink, so this section might be a little bit heavier than other inks. But there are just a lot of really cool utility cards, and I'm really excited to share about this ink. And there's a lot of cards I don't think see enough play, starting with the Chapter 1 legendary character Beast Wolfsbane. This is a 5 cost uninkable, 4 strength, 4 willpower, quest for 2. The fun thing about this card, my favorite feature of this card, is that he has Rush. He is the only character in the game at the moment that has Rush that is not a Ruby or Amethyst character, meaning if this is paired with Steel or Amber or Sapphire, they're never going to see the Rush coming, as this card is not played very often. I have used him a lot very successfully. He's a great way to catch people off guard. He's one of those that very often when I play him, they have to pick up the card and read it. But on top of that, he also has the Roar ability, which when you play him, you can exert all opposing damaged characters. So say they have a character on board that has a little bit of damage, you hit it with something that damaged it, but they didn't quite quest with it because they wanted to keep it safe. Suddenly, this opens it up to be exerted and challenged, and you can use him right away to challenge that character. It's a really good way to catch an opponent off guard. I think it's a very strong, very underutilized card. I don't know that you want more than 2 of it in any deck. I typically ran it as a 1-of tech card, but I love it so much, and I just had to talk about it. Moving on is one we do see in some plays and some fun deck builds is Genie on the Job. He's a 6 cost uninkable super rare character from the first chapter. He has 3 strength, 4 willpower, quest for 2. He has evasive. Uh, His stats aren't the greatest. The questing for two is nice to have in the invasive, but what he does is the disappear ability, which allows you to return a chosen character to a player's hand when you play him. So you can play him on turn six and pick any card. Doesn't matter what their strength is, like the muses with their song ability. You can choose any card that you can, turn it back to the player's hand. Sometimes you bounce your own stuff, or you can bounce something big and scary your opponent just played on their turn six or turn five, depending on the order of the game. It's a good card, a good disruption card, a bit pricey, but there are builds that use him and use him well. Moving on is a fan favorite and one that used to be all over the place, but you don't see him quite as often, but I still think it's worth talking about. It is Cusco Temperamental Emperor, a rare character from the first chapter, 5 costs uninkable, 2 strength, 4 willpower, quest for 3, and he has ward. He also has the no touchy ability, which states that when this character is challenged and banished, you may banish a challenging character. The ward keeps him safe from being chosen from direct effects and abilities, so there's a good chance you play him. You're probably getting 3 lore at bare minimum. And then when they do challenge into him, because they're going to want to get rid of him when they can, because questing for 3 is very dangerous, you get to banish whoever it is that ends up banishing him. Sometimes the trade doesn't feel as good, but you're really there to just cause mayhem, force your opponents to deal with your board. You're getting 3 lore, you're getting rid of a character. It's just a really strong card, and I still like to put him in decks every once in a while because people don't really see it coming, and it's just always good to have a 3 quester. Next, from chapter 1, we are talking about Mother Gothel Selfish Manipulator. She is a super rare 6 cost inkable character with 3 strength, 6 willpower, quest for 2. I have seen her starting to sneak into some really fun, what we call Baja Blast builds, which is Sapphire and Emerald. Because being able to ramp, you can kind of get away with playing some of these more expensive characters. She has the ability skip the drama, stay with Mama. While she is exerted, your opposing characters, your opponent's characters, they cannot quest. So they have to. Your opponent has to get rid of this card if they want to progress towards the goal of getting to 20 lore. Again, we are just here to disrupt our opponents with this ink. It's a lot of fun to play. She is obnoxious. She's not the hardest to get rid of at that point in the game when it's that late. Most of the time, they'll probably get rid of her before she goes sideways. But if you can force your opponent to slow down what they're doing to deal with her, that does feel pretty good. But she is just a really fun card, and I like her a lot. And then finally, from chapter 1, we're talking about our first non character in this budget potential section. Do It Again. It's a 3 cost uninkable action. It allows you to return an action card from your discard to your hand. It's just a really good way to put stuff into your hand. Emerald's draw isn't super strong, so it's kind of can make up for a little bit, replaces itself. You can bring back a powerful action you've already used. Maybe that we don't talk about Bruno we mentioned earlier, or Under the Sea. Put it back in your hand, and you can use it a second time. I think this will always kind of creep in and out of the super top tier decks. It's definitely a lot of fun in the budget decks. It helps, like I said, generate value, and that's what we like to see. It's just a cool card. I think the 3 ink is worth the price of being able to bring back an action, but it is also uninkable, and that is kind of the reason you don't see it as much because there are so many powerful uninkables in this ink that it just doesn't make the cut. Following that up is one of my personal favorite cards in the entire game. It is Beast Relentless, a legendary character from the Floodborn set. It is a 6 cost inkable character, 4 strength, 5 willpower, quest for 2. Really solid stats on its own, but it has second wind, which is whenever an opposing character is damaged, you may ready this character. Unlike a lot of other card effects that when you can re-ready a character from something, they usually don't let it quest again. He can quest again. I ran a deck for about 3 full sets that featured this card. I paired it with Steel with a bunch of the damaging actions and abilities on their characters, and this guy can just run away with games for you. He generates tons and tons and tons of value. For example, you can sing very powerful songs like Along Came Zeus, or even like Raging Fire, Storm Rage On. You could ping something and re-ready him, quest for 2. You could quest for 2 and then do something else to do damage, ready him, quest again. You can, if you, depending on your opponent's board, you could challenge into multiple characters in a turn and just take care of their entire board with him as he continues to ready every time they take damage. And the good thing is too, if he's exerted at the end of your turn and it's your opponent's turn, and say you put down a bodyguard or they decide to deal with a different character first because that's how they kind of have to play their turn. It doesn't if they damage one of their characters even on their turn, you can ready him, keeping him safe. So he is just a headache. He's a lot of fun to play with. I love this card passionately. What my good buddy is the one that showed me the like this card when he first came out. He built the deck around him, so we've been kind of tweaking that deck for almost a year now. It's a lot of fun. I do think there will be a day that he really does have his moment and shine. I love it. It's one of the best deck builds in my opinion to have fun with. Isn't super competitive. Sometimes it's not super consistent, but it's just a good time. I cannot recommend this card enough, and I will talk about this card for an hour, so I have to stop myself. Moving along, we are going to talk about Bell, Hidden Archer from the Floodborne series, also the legendary from that set. She's a 5 cost uninkable quest for 3 strength, 3 willpower. She shifts on 3, doesn't have a great shift target, but then again, we have that morph we talked about in the first part of this video. This is one of those cards that benefits from that being an option. Plus, she has the Thorny Arrows ability, which is that whenever she is challenged, the challenging character's player discards all the cards in their hand. Meaning, if you can get this out on turn 3, and say you play a morph, shift her, get her sideways, if your opponent doesn't have a way to get rid of her besides challenging into her, they're throwing away their whole hand because they don't want to leave a 3 quester on board for more than one turn. They might choose to leave her alone, generating 6 lore before they find a way to deal with her, and then not discard. That's a trade you make every single time. I don't know if she'll ever really be truly meta, but she's a lot of fun in budget builds. She's a hard card to play around for your opponent at times, and if you could shift her, especially, she feels really good. Up next, we have Lucifer, Cunning Cat. This was a card that was essential for me when I won my first tournament when I was running a Christmas Emerald Ruby discard evasive deck. It's a strong character, has a strong ability. A little understated still, in my opinion. I think if he had slightly better stats, he would still be in a lot of decks today. He is a 5 cost uninkable, 2 strength, 2 willpower quest for 2. So a little bit fragile, but he does quest for 2 if he's able to stick around. But his ability, Mouse Catcher, is a phenomenal ability that when you play him, each opponent must choose to discard either 2 cards from their hand or 1 action card, meaning that they would have to pick probably a powerful action card that they've been holding on to until later in the game. A lot of times you see those whole new worlds, grab your sword, be repaired, stuff like that your opponent might have had earlier just be sitting in their hand, or they have to discard 2 cards. It's a really good way on turn 5, especially if they haven't hit your opponent hasn't hit a ton of card draw. They're going to suddenly find themselves without a hand or down to 1 card, and it's a pain. It's a cool card. It's a lot of fun. Up next is one of my favorite kind of pet cards that I love. I've definitely built many decks around this guy, included him in some different builds. I think he's got potential to one day be really good. It is Pete Bad Guy from Floodborne set. He's a rare character, 5 cost inkable, 3 strength, 4 willpower quest for 2. He also has that ward ability, like a couple other characters we already talked about, meaning he can kind of stick around. He has the take that ability that when you do play an action, he gets +2 strength this turn. And so, in the natural flow of the game, so you play on turn 5, turn 6, you're probably playing an action. If you're not playing a character outright, you're going to make him a 5/4 suddenly. And then he's got Who's Next that states that while this character has 7 strength or more, he gets +2 lore. So, if you're able to find a way to play 2 actions in a turn, which is possible if you use Ursula Deceiver of all to sing a song twice. All of a sudden, he hits that mark. He's questing for 4. He's got the ward, so you can kind of hang around. So you set that up. My personal favorite card to use with him is a 1 drop. I want to say it's a common action card from the first set called Vicious Betrayal that gives villain characters +3 strength. So you get the +3 strength, putting them at 6, and then because you play the action, you get the other 2, putting them all the way up to 8. So you can either quest for 4, all of a sudden he is swinging for 8. He can take out Tamatoas. He can take out the big Cinderellas. He can take out just about anything your opponent's going to have on board at that point, or get you 4 lore. I think it's a really fun card to play with. I do think there could be a day we see him teched in as a 2 or 3 up in some competitive builds. It's a really good time at the kitchen table. I love this card. It's just so much fun. Up next is an action song from Floodborne. It is a rare. It is Bibbidi Bobbidi Boo. It's 3 costs uninkable. It lets you return a chosen character of yours to your hand to play another character with the same cost or less for free. Now, I think this one technically got eroded, but the way it works is you could replay the same character even though it says another character. So like you could play something that you has an on play ability, say you have something that makes your opponent discard or gives strength to something or just has an ability, you can play that character, play the song, bounce it back to your hand so you can do it again. You could quest for something and then pull it back if you want to keep it safe. Maybe something like that Prince John that's your draw engine. You could really take advantage of that way, where you quest for the 2 points he can get you, the two lore, and then bounce it back to your hand and safely replay it. It's just a cool way to manipulate the board and manipulate the game. Next, we are talking about another personal favorite. This is my favorite ink, so a lot of these are just very personal favorites. Is Crick Key. I think this is one that I would not be surprised if very soon he becomes a staple. Very strong ability. It's a rare character, 5 cost, inkable, 3 strength, 4 willpower, quest for 3. And he also has spreading good fortune that when you play him, your other characters gain +3 strength that turn. So all the characters on your board when you play him get +3 strength. It just makes your entire board a massive challenge threat. He's a big questing threat. So not only he's becomes a target for your opponent to slow down what they're doing because they want to get him off the board before he also quests for 3 after you've challenged into a bunch of stuff with his other part of his ability. He's just a really, really strong card. He's a really fun card to play. It's a good way to catch your opponents off guard. I like it a lot. And moving on, we are going to talk about Mother Gothel, Unwavering Schemer from the Shimmering Skies set. And she is a super rare character, a 6 cost inkable. She's got 4 strength, 6 willpower, quest for 2. At one point, she was kind of more of a staple. I did see a lot of builds with her. She's kind of faded a little bit, but I still think it's a really cool card to play, a really fun card to play with. She does shift for 4. She doesn't really have the best target in this ink, but there are other Mother Gothels that see play that you could possibly use for. And again, another target for that morph we talked about. And then she has the World is Dark ability, which states that when you play her, each opponent chooses one of their characters and puts it in their hand. Again, we're bouncing stuff of our opponents back to their hand, grabbing some board presence that way. It's not permanently banished, but it sometimes at this point in the game, when you're at 6, turn 6, slowing them down that one turn, taking something a major piece off their board like that could make all the difference. It's just a really good card. It looks really cool. I like it. And then up next, we have an item. Prince John's Mirror is a 3 cost inkable item. It has the You Look Regal ability, which states that if you happen to have a Prince John in play, you pay 1 less for this item. So I could definitely see a world where you put a couple of these with that other Prince John in a discard build, especially because it has a feeling of power ability that at the end of your opponent's turn, if they have more than 3 cards in their hand, they have to discard till they have 3 in their hand. So usually your opponent's going to try and play less optimal plays, less on curve plays, trying to get their hand down to 3 to avoid just discarding cards. Item removal is not super strong or prevalent for the most part, so this item can really stick around and force your opponent to play around it. The only downside is you do pair this in a discard deck, so there's a good chance you're already making your opponent keep a 3 card hand. Sometimes you're unable to really maintain their hand being low, and they're able to kind of draw around it and maintain a hand, so this can kind of really just put the nail in the coffin. And if that's the case, then it feels really good. Otherwise, you can still at least ink the item. So it's definitely got a little bit of that flexibility because it's inkable, and I don't hate it as in a casual build. And I just, Robin Hood's one of my favorites, so I do love anything Robin Hood. Up next is my personal favorite, Princess Jasmine, Royal Seafarer. She is a rare character from Azurite Sea, 3 cost inkable. She has 2 strength, 3 willpower, quest for 1. And kind of like that Anna, she offers some flexibility on your turn 3, which is something we really like in Emerald because we kind of like to be able to pick and choose a path we go from game to game. Gives us a little more flexibility in our deck building. Her By Order of the Princess allows you to pick one of 2 effects. You can either exert a chosen damaged character. So, say they have a damaged character that they didn't exert because they want to keep it safe. Suddenly, you can exert it, making it challengeable by whatever else is on your board. Or you can give a character Reckless, forcing them next turn to not be able to quest and forcing them into challenge or forcing them to be exerted to sing a song. Once again, we are disrupting our opponent. It's just really nice to have a little flexibility in that disruption. Moving on is a card that I think is actually creeping its way currently into the staples for this ink because there is a really common build going around with Sapphire. Like I had mentioned earlier, it has a 7 cost inkable, 4 strength, 6 willpower, quest for 1. It's super rare from Azurite Sea, Peter Pan Neverland Prankster. He has Look Innocent ability, which means he enters play exerted, which sounds bad on paper, but he has the Can't Take a Joke ability, which plays into that while he is exerted, your opponent cannot gain lore unless one of their characters has challenged this turn. Now, they don't have to necessarily challenge Peter Pan. but they have to challenge something if they want to gain any lore at all. This card can stop your opponent from winning or gaining lore from locations in the set phase or anything that triggers in the ready phase, the ready set phase. It's your opponent just cannot gain lore no matter what unless something has they have challenged a character of any kind on the board. He's got the 4 strength and 6 willpower, making him kind of sticky. He's probably going to take out something that challenges into him or leave them on life support, ready to be taken out by something else of yours. And again, we are here to disrupt our opponent. This card does it better than most in this ink. It is a lot of fun to play on your end. It is no fun at all to see from your opponent. Moving on is another favorite card of mine from this new set from Azurite Sea. It is a rare character, Goofy Expert Shipwright. He is a 5-cost inkable, 1 strength, 4 willpower, quest for 3. Not super great stats as far as strength goes, but he has ward, meaning he's most likely going to stick around for a turn, allowing you to a minimum quest for 3 with him, which always feels really good to quest for 3, especially at that point in the game. But what I really, really like with this card is the clever design ability that when you do quest with him and gain that 3 lore, you get to give something else ward until the start of your next turn, meaning that on turn 6, you can play something, give it ward. It is now safe to stick around till turn 7, most likely, barring some kind of, maybe a blanket removal like Bear comes out. It is what it is. There's really not much you can do about that. But being able to quest for 3, give something else ward, just feels really good. So like on curve, you play. So one of the things I started messing around with was that Relentless Beast we talked about. I play this Goofy on turn 5. Relentless comes out on turn 6. I quest with this Goofy, give the Beast Relentless ward, keeping him safe for a turn, meaning there's a good chance I could pop him off with his ability. It's just a really cool way to kind of close out games, give yourself some protection. Up next is a card that will make you hated by your opponent unlike any other. It is Bend to My Will. It is an action, 7-cost, uninkable. It's straightforward. Each opponent discards all cards in their hand. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. It's a strong card. It's definitely an action card. Your opponent's going to be very, very salty about. They're salty about this ink a lot. Emerald causes salt. You kind of just have to deal with it. It's a good card. It's paired in that Sapphire deck I talked about a moment ago because you can ramp into that 7 ink and play it pretty early and really devastate your opponent. The last card we're going to talk about is You Came Back. It is a rare action from Azurite Sea. 3 cost uninkable. Ready chosen character. And like the Relentless, where you can ready it and then you're free to quest. Same with this card. It is really nice to have something that can ready a card of yours and quest a second time. You can close out a lot of games, especially if you use it on something like that Goofy or that Cricky or that Cusco we talked about. Quest for 3, play this, quest for 3 again. Suddenly you're getting 6 lore just like that. I like pairing it with the Goofy because not only are you getting 6 lore that turn, you're giving 2 other characters ward, meaning you could play if you easily play something like a Bonsai and a Curse Merfolk, and then play this with 6 ink after the Goofies came out on turn 5. You quest with the Goofy, give both of those things ward, and then suddenly you're safe to quest not only for 6 with that Goofy, most likely you're going to get 4 that next following turn. It's a really, really cool card. It's a lot of fun to mess around with. There's a lot of ways to use this. I really like it a lot, and I'm having a ton of fun playing with it. And that will do it for today's video, and that does it for Emerald as of today with what I consider to be the budget staples and potentials worth talking about. Thank you again for tuning in and checking out this series. If this is something you're enjoying, I think you will enjoy as I continue to go through this budget series and budget deck building and all those kind of things, please give me a like and a subscribe. If you have any feedback at all on the things that I talked about in this video, be it cards you didn't expect to see, cards you think don't belong, or cards that, maybe you didn't think were going to be really good, but maybe my description or talking about them may have changed your mind, please let me know. I welcome any and all feedback. I'm also very active over on X under the same name, Ferda Fangorn. I really enjoyed making this video for you guys today, and I'm excited to move on to Ruby with our next one. And with that, be love, be you, and God bless.